a bit about yourself. Okay?
First.
Yeah. But I'm starting. Yeah.
So my name is Noam. I'm a psychotherapist, and in the last 2.5 years, I've done a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies. I did like 19 ceremonies in India, in Israel, and also in Peru, mostly, and in Colombia. I also did a mushroom experience, like I took mushrooms a few times, and I took like really high doses sometimes, and went really, really deep with it. And in some point in my journeys, in my last ceremony, I kind of abused the medicine. Now I can say, and I know how important it is to listen to the amounts, to listen to the call, not to do it because of ego or if the terms are not right. And I've had a really, really hard ceremony. It was like traumatic in many ways. Like it reminded me when he was talking, like a month and a half after I finished my last ceremony, this started to happen. The dark night of the soul, which I will explain soon. And basically, in my personal experience, I started to feel that everything in reality is just a dream. And I zoned out, like I could find myself like speaking with friends, and suddenly it feels like something is shifting, and I'm like, wait a minute, you know?
I know.
Yeah, and it really feels like waking up inside a dream. And think about what happens when you are waking up inside a dream and you understand that you are dreaming, but you are in this dream. And you can't really believe in what's happening. So one way will be to release and say, okay, let's fly, let's celebrate. But then if you start to resist it, it can be super hard. So that was only the introduction, because there are many forms of dark night of the soul. I think it's important to know it as therapists and also as people who are going through things like that, in order to be able to calm ourselves and have a map, have a deep understanding about what's happening.
Can I ask what's the substance that you abused?
Ayahuasca. Basically, ayahuasca and mushrooms, I abused both of them.
Together at the same time?
No, in different times.
Yeah. And
we'll
we just had a...
Yeah, we'll keep questions to the end, okay?
טוב, זו רק של הבנה, אני מנסה להבין. And the ceremony you served, or did you participate?
I participated.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not serving. And also setting is so important. I will not touch it now. Okay, אני ממשיך?
Okay.
So, the dark night of the soul. I want first to talk about Stanislav Grof is a psychiatrist. When LSD was invented or discovered by Donald Hoffman, was his name? I think so. So they sent it to different labs, and he, as a psychiatrist, he was like, oh, let's try this out. And they put him in a machine, and I think it was a PET scanner or topography, this one. And it had the light back then, like really strong light that is there. And when he took like a really big dose. They didn't understand what they are taking. And he basically experienced the Big Bang. And he met like so many facets of life. And when he finished, he was like, okay, no matter what I did until this point, I'm gonna change it and focus on psychedelics and how they influence us, because he understood that the truth he met was so deep and profound. And then he just worked with like thousands and thousands of people, and he did it in a really scientific way. As a psychiatrist, he found the right place. And then when psychedelics got out of the law, he just invented a way to get this LSD experience with breath. It's called holotropic breath work. So if you ever want to experience like something like this, it's another way without substances. So he wrote a lot of books. He's like a really big name in the world of psychedelics, and he basically mapped the worlds you can meet, like the spiritual worlds, of course not everything because it's infinite, but like he saw what people are talking about, what they report, and he used it to make a really nice map of what you can meet in a session. So this is the book I'm reading now, which this lecture is based on. It's called The Stormy Search for the Self, or החיפוש הסוער העצמי. He wrote it with his wife, which been through a dark night of the soul for a really long time, and in the end she managed to recover, but she became an alcoholic because it was so hard for her to deal with it. So soon we'll talk about like what is spiritual emergence, and listen to this term, spiritual emergence. It's like the emergency and also the emergence. Yeah, like the two meanings which seem like you understand. Can you close the door because
זה ממטבח הרעש.
תגידי להם.
sorry, I'm just my focus is
לא, מחבה.
There's actually a movie about him.
about Stan Grof.
Yeah, really interesting one. I saw that. Recommended.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think I saw it. Yeah, I saw this movie in India. Okay, so possible triggers for the dark night of the soul. So let's start with the characteristics of it. What is the dark night of the soul or spiritual emergency? So, for instance, not in the time of a ceremony. For instance, the ceremony is finished, or something is triggering something inside you, and suddenly you are being open to a vast knowledge that lies in the collective subconscious. Or because who we are is so much deeper than who we think we are and what we are. And suddenly our hold or our attachment to what we think we are, like to this illusion of self, is breaking, and a lot of subconscious, like collective materials are starting to like overflow you. And it can be challenging. Think about you in life, like tripping, walking and tripping, and then suddenly you are like getting the ground, and suddenly it happens again and again and again. I can tell you, super challenging. It can be super challenging. So let's start with the possible triggers. For instance, illnesses, accidents, surgery, extreme physical exertion, or persistent lack of sleep, near-death experiences, strong emotional events like a woman who is giving birth. You know, a lot of DMTs also. For instance, Christina Grof, her trigger for the dark night of the soul was giving birth. Just all this energy. Loss can trigger like such a shift in the understanding of life, and it can change something and open a portal for those realms. During sex, because when sex is done in a really intimate, tantric, let's say, way, it can also take us to those places. Yoga Kundalini practices, I don't know if you heard about the energy of Kundalini. It lies here in our pelvic area, and it's like, they say it's folded. Then when we shake it and do exercises, it's starting to rise and rise and rise and rise. And then when it comes to the crown, people experience like crazy stuff. And personally I have a friend who got into a mental hospital because they found her walking naked near a river after doing practices of Kundalini. Nothing else, only this. Spiritual practices like meditation, for instance, practices we all know. If we really dive into it, if you heard about Ramana Maharshi, he's a spiritual teacher, amazing one, and he just constantly met God, like in life, and just through meditation, deep therapy sessions, through hypnosis, through breathwork, holotropic breathwork, and mind-altering drugs like ayahuasca, mushrooms, LSD, etc. This is, I think, the most obvious. So some of the characteristics of the dark night of the soul or spiritual emergency. So spiritual emergency, like dissociation, kundalini, incarnation. So for instance, it can be someone who suddenly is having a lot of flashback from his previous lifetimes, like incarnation. And he can be an atheist. And he's like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'm seeing these people, I'm seeing those places, and I feel that I'm related to those places. Okay, suddenly, like the body is starting to shake, to tremble. It's like the kundalini energy. Dissociations, for instance, it happened to me when I was in Mexico that I was sitting with friends and suddenly I'm going somewhere, and like few minutes after I'm like back in the body, and then I'm like, what happened? You know this feeling? Like,
Where were you?
where was I? Yeah,
No, I'm actually asking where were you?
somewhere. Yeah,
So you
somewhere.
were
Yeah, disassociation.
All
Yeah,
right.
but somewhere, but it can go also to spiritual places, or places where I can't remember who I am, what I am, stuff like this. Intense emotional turmoil, מה זה turmoil? תרגמתי את זה מעברית ושכחתי.
סערה.
Turmoil makes sense, yeah.
What is turmoil?
No,
Like chaos.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
chaos.
כן.
I should have translated it to chaos.
No,
So,
turmoil makes sense.
intense emotions like crying, laughing, and it's like on and on and on and on. You know, it can go for days, and you're like, oh my God, what's happening with me? You know, like someone is just talking to me, and I'm crying and laughing and everything. Loss of familiar identity, also something I'm familiar with, like, who am I? What am I? Okay, not being able to understand what is me, or who am I? You know, if I ask you, you have a lot of answers, but think about a moment that you can't remember. Nothing. There's nothing to hold on to. It can be super scary. And also, if you let go there, and we will talk about it in a moment, it can be amazing, because then it can be anything. Right? But if we are fighting it, and it sounds easy to let go, and it can be really, really challenging. Like, it's taking a lot of courage and devotion. And challenging physical and sensory experiences, I think we spoke about it. Social isolation and misunderstanding, integration challenges, they come together. For instance, think about the family of someone like this. Suddenly, such a huge change is happening. Many times, what's happening in the Western culture is that people that are going through spiritual emergency, they treat them like they have psychosis. They're like, he changed completely, he doesn't know who he is, he thinks demons attack him, so let's put him in a mental hospital. And then what happens to people like that, instead of supporting them in this process that can lead to a really, really amazing place, they just put them in mental hospitals, and then they are lost, you know? It's like taking drugs forever and ever, and it's like there, it's inside. Like many things here can be treated as schizophrenia. Another reason why I think it's important to learn. So I believe the positive effects of the dark night of the soul for a bit later. So many times the reason that it's happening is they speak in Kabbalah about the vessel and the light. For instance, if I take now a huge bucket of water and I take a tiny glass, okay, and I pour everything in, it's really fragile, it will just break. And then when it's breaking, it can be really, really overwhelming. and many times people, you know, like teenagers or people from the West without a deep understanding of the human soul of themselves, like taking substances, and then this huge light is just breaking the vessel, and this is what we see and meet. So I think the right approach to working with psychedelics will be to build a vessel, build a container, like do a lot of meditations, gain a lot of understanding about the different realms, and only then go into psychedelics. A good example of it will be the book LSD and the Mind of the Universe, which I recommend to anyone to read. Such an amazing book, like really amazing. So, as I said, that it's really challenging, like those experiences, and you can feel like, okay, this is it, like I'm gonna die, I lose everything that I had a hold on. There is also a light in the end of the tunnel. It's like the vortex, you know? So you let go, then you go on the other side, like, and many people, and this is a growth, is talking about it, that many people who've been through the dark night of the soul and let go in this process, and it, you know, we can say, okay, I will let go once. It can be like let go and let go and let go and let go and let go, like for a long period of time. It's like accepting I'm nothing, accepting my best, feeling like some people are describing going to a really low place, and then animals are coming and eating their flesh, and they feel everything, being burned alive, demons attacking them. You know, it's not easy. It's like super hard. But then people who agree and let go there, you see, like what Groff is saying is that those animals who ate them become the guardians. Yeah, you understand that? So after the night, the dawn come. And it's beautiful. But the process is super hard. So in the West, what's happening is that we give drugs to these people. We say that they have psychosis. And the potential there, and this is what Groff was fighting for in his life, he's like, the potential of spiritual emergency, if you understand it's a spiritual emergency and not psychosis, it doesn't say there is no psychosis. And soon I will talk about how to distinguish between both. He says the potential can be so amazing and transformative. And he told it to his wife when she's been through it, and in the end she did, and now she's like amazing. So I want to talk about the other assets of the dark night of the soul, like mystical and transcendent states of consciousness. For instance, I remember when I had the most hard, terrible experiences, I also saw beauty that I never saw in my life. I also saw the greatness of the Creator, and it changed my life. But it was hard.
Literally
Like it was,
at the very same time or nearby?
no,
like-
after. Usually, for me, it was like agony, deep agony, like, and then at some point, like something changed, and it's like I will not elaborate now because I have a time limit. But what I saw in those places really changed my life. Like,
That you were on the drug or not?
yeah, that was when
Alright.
I was.
Alright.
When I had my own dark night of the soul, I saw that I have psychosis. That I'm going to have psychosis. I saw myself in a mental hospital. And I got so scared, so I fought it as strong as I could. You know, I was just watching movies to stay with something that I can get a hold on to. And like, not feeling it, not seeing it, you know, it was really hard. So learning is important. You see what? Expanded awareness and perception, like people who are going through it, for instance, they understand suddenly that their self, the way they used to think about themselves, is something else, and then they start to experience everything through an expanded self. So for instance, they can look at Avishai and suddenly be Avishai and have his thoughts and feel his feelings. Be a tree. I don't know, I'm just giving examples, but it can go to so many different levels. Connect to spiritual, to spirits, I don't know. Connection to a higher power, it can be to spirits, it can be to God, it can be to like people describing different things. You know, gurus are going through things like this. Yeah? You want to ask something?
No.
No, okay. Sorry. Different sense of purpose and interconnectedness. For instance, they're feeling everything is connected. They feel like life not through the self, not through the I. Okay, so how do we distinguish between psychosis and spiritual emergency?
That's what I was saying, that hill.
Oh, yeah. That's the reason I picked it, because it's really scary. So I give you only two differences, but I took from the book, like the distinction that the Groff makes. There are many different points. So I will send it in the group and you can read it if it's interesting for you. Like physical differences and psychological.
We would
and
love
behavioral.
it.
Yeah, I will send. I think it's important to know, to be able. So basically, if I talk about the basic principles, is awareness to the spiritual characteristics of the experience. For instance, understanding, okay, I'm going through something spiritual, really deep, really hard, but I know that I'm going through something really hard. And I believe in it. For instance, if demons attack me, I can run away, but I don't think it's the truth about who I am or about life, in a way, not in a permanent way. For instance, there are gaps between our experiences. It's not like I can say from my own experience. It's not like I experience it over and over, like all the time. It's like I have a really deep experience and then something is coming down, at least for a while. So what's happening in this time zone between? Do I still think it's true? For instance, let's talk about a difference. Someone who sits home and suddenly see pictures from another life, and he see demons attacking him and stuff like this, and going through really like thinking everything is a dream, and then he has this break, and then it's like, okay, I've been through something really strong, and I want to look at it, for instance. And a schizophrenic will be like, my neighbor is trying to attack me. He really trying to attack me. He really is trying to attack me, and I need to do whatever it takes to protect myself from my neighbor. So you see the difference there, right? In understanding of the situation, in understanding that I'm going through something, but it's not like who I really am.
One understands it's not real.
Yeah,
Actually
it's
happening,
like also you had moments that you thought, wait a minute, maybe it's true, but it didn't stay. And we talk about here in the Dark Night of the Soul, we talk about like long period of time. So also when I thought that reality was a dream, I could see that I'm going through something really hard, but I didn't believe in it. Like I was scared of it, but I didn't let it color my view on life.
5 minutes.
Okay. Enough distinction between inner experiences and what's happening outside. So this is also really important. For instance, I will not attack someone or something like that. So we spoke about an example. So I want to talk about another thing that I think everybody should, if you want to work with psychedelics, and to really take this work seriously, I think it's really important. Or work with people who are going through spiritual emergencies. So Groff wrote a book, for instance, Realms of the Human Unconscious. So he just mapped the different experiences people can have when they take psychedelics or during a spiritual emergency, which can again happen, like it can be triggered by a lot of things, not only psychedelics. So when we have this understanding, then even if someone is feeling really, really lost and not being able to remember what he is, who he is, feeling dissociated, seeing demons attacking him, going to hell or stuff like that, first, I can understand, oh, this is just a phase. It's super hard here, but I understand. It's part of the process. Okay, and then I can give this, like, sitting with someone in the same way. And people can feel. They feel us if we are freaking out. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? You know, we feel it even if our sitter is not telling it to us. And we feel that he doesn't know what to do and what's going on. So I think gaining understanding is super important. One more thing that I just want to open your curiosity. So what Groff found out in his interviews with people is that a lot of what people experience in the psychedelic state or when Dark Night of the Soul happen is related to the birth, to their own birth. And he talked about different phases. It's like the perinatal, prenatal, I don't remember the names.
Yeah, I've read
honestly.
that before as well. It's
Yeah.
like also from apparently when babies get injections, they get injections when they're like just born
Yeah.
or something, and then there's actually post-traumatic stress from those injections
Wow.
that a lot of people
Yeah.
have or something like that.
Yeah, so this is one thing, this is after birth, but he understood that in the belly we are feeling like this, I'm surrounded with love, or that it's really, really a wounded womb, which, for instance, the father hit the mother, okay? It changes the whole environment. And then, like, the process of pushing through and going out to life. And this whole process from the beginning, the moment that the womb is starting to push, but then it's still closed, like the yoni is still closed. 2 minutes, okay. And then this experience can trigger a lot of experiences of feeling really, really stuck, really lost, feeling like I'm in a place that is like infinite, like a black hole, okay? So there are many, many parallels that he makes, and he learned it from people he worked with, okay? So I really invite you to read more. So I have 1 more minute, so I'll just summarize. We spoke about growth researchers, about possible triggers for the Dark Night of the Soul or spiritual emergence, spiritual emergent characteristics. We make distinctions between psychosis and that, and mapping the realms of consciousness. So that was me. I hope you enjoyed. And it's time for questions and answers.
Thank you. Okay, so questions.
Right, like the Dark Night of the Soul could be seen like a unprocessed awakening of some sort.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the correlation between these events and like the spiritual awakening, the classic spiritual awakening, in Buddhist traditions and so forth?
Yeah, so basically when we speak about spiritual awakening, most of the gurus that I read about, and in the book that I showed in the presentation, he speak about this, that most of the gurus been through this process. It's not like they just woke up one day. It's like you have to, in a way, this is who I am now. I have my boundaries, and I have my identification with self, like Noam, so this and this, and all my thoughts are around it all the time. And breaking this identification is super hard because I don't want to die. I love I. We all love I. So in order to open myself up to God, I need to break it in a way. Like not to break it, but to, let's say,
To shake it.
to shake it and in some point to break it. It's like I like on the cover of this book they show the phoenix of Chol. The phoenix, it's the same. It's like death, and from the ashes the rebirth. So you can see many times in spiritual like in trips, for instance, or journeys, that you are going through something really, really, really hard, and then suddenly something open up and you see the light. Sometimes it's happened like the other way. It happened to me too, but many times it happens this way, because it's like preparing my vessel to contain bigger light, like breaking my identification with myself, and then opening me up to, because then I'm ready. I'm more ready than before, and then I will not break from seeing the greatness of God, for instance.
Did you have that, like what I was describing before, when it was the first time, like that clicking moment where everything just turned dark? Did you have that?
Yeah.
And then after you had that, were you afraid taking psychedelics the next time that that would overtake it and come again?
Yeah. So first, I would just say that if you read the story of Buddha, it's exactly what he'd been through in his.
Yeah, a lot of Buddhism is like psychedelics. I found, because I've read a lot about Buddhism. I really like it.
Like
Especially
sitting under the trees, and then temptations comes, and then demons attack him. You know, so you can see all the parallels. Also, I think in
also
Judaism,
when you look at what you said
can
before,
see a lot of like enemies coming. It's like spiritual things.
But also what you said before about if like you look at Avishai and then you are Avishai, like everyone and everything is the same. That's a very, very big thing in Buddhism. Everyone's made out of the same thing and the same one living thing. And that's what I feel in psychedelics as well.
Yeah, and it's one thing to think it and understand it, and it's another thing to really experience it.
Yeah.
Because experiencing it is amazing, but it also means the cease of existence of myself.
Yeah.
So I just want to say about your question that I had a trip that I took like 10 grams of mushrooms, accidentally, never mind. And I think this is the moment everything changed for me personally. Because I had this really dark moment, and there is nothing to hold on to. It feels like standing in the middle of the woods, and I see the tigers coming, and I know there's nothing I can do, nowhere I can hide. And they keep walking.
Is
And
that a
I
metaphor or a?
It's a metaphor, but it's the same feeling. It's like something inside me is fighting for life. Fighting like desperately. It's like think about this cat that you lock in the room and you just make a lot of noise. We just freak out and run and climb the walls. So this is what the ego is trying to do. It's like, don't touch me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you spoke a bit about the vessels of the Kabbalah and about it breaking. And on one hand you wanted to break, but on one hand you do have examples from your own life of people who couldn't, and also the examples you give of people who broke the vessel so much they didn't really recover from it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you do you have any intuition about how do you know whether about yourself or about someone else, how much they can take, like, because you can never really be prepared for a psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
Right, so so you say meditation maybe helps and spiritual journeys, but is there like from your experience, because you've been on both sides of it, I think. Maybe you can share with us about some.
Yeah.
So how to gauge your ability, your
Yeah,
capacity.
thank you for this question. It's really important. So I can say first a few things. First, like what can happen? It's another thing, but I want to say it before. What can happen to people that have the dark night of the soul is three things. One, they go inside the vortex and they go from the other side like a new self. Second is holding on to life with the nails. It's like, I will keep living my life the way it was. Okay? And the third will be that they meet those substances, the society around them, like everybody, freaking out because they think they are going crazy, and themselves also think they are going crazy. And then they take them to a mental hospital, and they just stuck this way forever and ever because they just drug them and drug them and drug them in order to shut down whatever they experience. So in some point they will have to encounter this if it keeps happening and it's not coming down. And it's not easy. Like, it's not easy. And the other thing, like for your question, so I think everybody should look inside and see, like, those are the things I didn't do in my journey, and like it's my advice to look inside and say, why do I do it? Why do I want to take psychedelics? Am I really ready for the truth? And the truth can be, it's like the Matrix, it's the red pill, it can be fucking hard, but also the most beautiful thing that can happen to someone, or to the world, to life. But why do I do it? Am I ready? Do I have the ability to contain whatever comes, like emotions that are coming? For instance, fears, I don't know, like all the strong emotions that comes. I'm not saying you have to be like 100% prepared in order to do psychedelics, but you need to be prepared to a certain extent. For instance, I wouldn't recommend someone who is really emotionally blocked to go to psychedelics because the vessel, his container is not built. Yeah?
Emotionally blocked, you mean like?
Like he feels something and he goes to the phone. Like that will be his habitual way of dealing with strong, hard emotions, unpleasant. So, oh my God, someone rejected me, I'm going to the phone, yeah? Or any kind of addiction. And if they do go to psychedelics, I would recommend to start really, really, really gently. Like to take, for instance, 1 gram of mushrooms. I wouldn't recommend like a 5 grams experience because, you know, this is a vessel now, and this is a light, I wouldn't push it. So going really, really slowly, feeling it. And lastly, like about this question, I think a really, really important thing is integration between ceremonies. It's for me, and I didn't do it, and I'm really sorry that I didn't do it now, but I learned. It's like, what did the medicine try to show me about life, about myself? And then writing the lessons and starting to integrate it in my daily life. Like, it means that I should do this and this and this. And then starting to practice it, to integrate it. Then this way, next time I come to a ceremony, I show the medicine. I show the medicine that I respect, I learn, and it really is part of who I want to be in life. So then I respect the medicine and the medicine respects me. And when I come and do one and another one and another one and another one, it's like abusing the medicine. And it's really abusing something really, really, really deep, really strong and divine, you know? And I always say that think about Earth compared to the universe. It's like nothing. And I think spiritual realms are the same. Like, from my understanding. It's like we experience something, life the way they are, and spiritual realms are like the universe. It's like. So we need to be humble.
You
We
mean
should be humble.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
with that, we'll finish. Wow.
Thank you.